are we all? Thanks for turning up. I know you had other choices this afternoon, so it's great that you decided to come and see me. Pretty fancy title I have here for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Oversupply, the impact of abundance, rah, 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 rah. It sounds like I was writing it for a journal. What I'm actually going to be talking about today is, are we spoiled? Okay, so are we spoiled by having too much? So in doing that, we're going to be talking about abundance, but we're also going to be talking about scarcity. And I'll probably spend more time talking about scarcity than I do, that was meant to happen, than I will about abundance. But before we do that, I want to remind you and show you what scarcity looks like.
Like the corners of my mind.
What remains vivid in my memory is my husband struggling with a bunch of suitcases, my little child on my hands, and all of us being pushed up the stairway. And I remember always looking back and seeing my mother and father crying and sort of blowing their noses with their handkerchiefs.
When you're thinking of home, go home on the telephone.
Australia,
I've cried like that since Titanic. Who's seen that ad? Who remembers that ad? Who was affected by that ad, whether you're saying it or not? Does anyone get the idea about scarcity and how it can actually elevate our excitement and enjoyment of things? You might also be familiar with the work of Dr. Cialdini. Anyone read his book on persuasion? Fantastic book, highly recommended. One of his 6 principles of influence is the principle of scarcity. And that basically says the more rare and uncommon thing is, the more people want it. And that pretty much fits in with economic theory as well. So that's kind of my premise, really. My premise is simply this, that there's a hell of a lot more stuff out there. We have a lot more stuff. If scarcity makes things better, then surely the abundance and the proliferation of stuff is possibly diminishing our enjoyment of those things. So what I basically decided to do was then measure whether things have increased or not. It's pretty straightforward. Measure our enjoyment of those things, and then compare them across different generations to see whether they had changed with the interaction effects. I must say a very big thanks to 9 Rewards, who've always supported me in my endeavour to be interesting, and have helped me out again this time with a national sample of 1,000 people, so we couldn't have done this research without them. So big thanks to them. So we basically did a national survey, and you're all familiar with how that's done, so I'm not going to bore you with the details of that. Now, like all research, it seemed like a really good idea at the beginning, and it seemed really simple, and of course you know what happens, you get rubber hits the road, you start doing the research, and it's always more complicated than you think. So, the first thing I had to do was work out what I was actually going to measure, and I couldn't measure a whole lot of things, right? But basically they fell into 2 broad camps, technology and changes due to society. Even within technology, it got more complicated than I thought. So if I'm looking at, just say, taking photos, of course that has gone through 3 generations of evolution, so from film to digital to smartphones, for example. So we're going to look at taking photos, we're going to look at the way we access news, gaming, TV series, the way we access TV, movies, Aussie sports, music, and this was really very pivotal in this research. This is kind of where my idea came from. I was thinking back to, in my day, you'd hear a song on the radio, you'd kind of rush down to the record bar, you'd ask to listen to it, you'd put the headphones on, you'd then buy it, you'd take it home, you'd get it out, yeah, right? You know, the crispy, sleevey thing that it was in, and then you'd play it to death, right? Surely that's more enjoyable than, oh, I like that, Shazam, bang, I've got it, let's play it all day long. Surely, right? You would think. Wait and see. I'm going to look at how we communicate with people abroad, so that's like holiday news, so Facebook is one of the things there. How we just keep in touch on the day-to-day, and then of course, how we connect long distance, so that's people who are actually living abroad, right? So that's related back to that, the thing of the ad I showed at the beginning. Then we're going to look at international sports. Yeah, they could belong in technology, but I put it in here because I think the Aussies are playing the English more cricket than ever before and whatever. We're going to look at overseas holidays. We're going to look at family holidays. We're going to look at things like kids' gifts, kids' TV, dining out, kids' awards. How about this one, ladies and gentlemen? Huh? I was at my son's assembly the other day, and they were doing the awards, and some kid got an award for making interesting patterns out of shapes. Don't know what's going on there. Bikes and scooters, kids' activities, dance, and then we thought we were really, really, really clever with these two, right? We thought, but let's put in something there that's going to be like a control that hasn't increased. So we thought our first crush would be a good one, that hasn't increased, that's going to be as exciting as it ever was, and watching our team win. And then we're going to look at that across the different generations. Okay? Simple? Okay, so the first thing I have to do, we're going to look at technology, and the first thing I have to prove is, yep, these things that increase, and of course they have. And you would all know that, but I still wanted to check it. So we just basically asked people whether they thought people were doing these things more often than they have in the past, right? So we just calibrated it to 100 for convenience. So basically, taking photographs is the thing that is increased the most. This was followed by the way we access news, video gaming, holiday news, watching TV, watching movies, connecting with people abroad, keeping in touch with people, accessing Aussie sports, and then music collection, which I was surprised to see so far down. I would have thought music collection would be a lot further up the list. Of course, researchers always, in hindsight, you go back and you look at the question you asked. We asked about building and listening to music, building a music collection. People don't really build music collections anymore with things like Spotify, so maybe that's impacted. But essentially, all these things had increased, right? So, if things have increased and the principle of scarcity applies, then surely our enjoyment should be diminished, right? So let's start with the top three because that's where we should see it at its greatest. So we'll start with, and of course this is where the twist in the tail is, ladies and gentlemen, and this is where research is a great thing because it always throws up surprises. Taking photos. We are now enjoying taking photos more with our digital cameras and our smartphones than picking up developed photos. Have a think about that. There's probably some, if we unpack that, we can probably come up with some reasons. Accessing news. Well, newspapers are there, but also we see PC and laptop was enjoyed more and smartphones were enjoyed less, so there's a little bit of a mixed result there. And then video games. We're far more enjoying accessing our video games on our smartphones than, say, going into the arcade. And this was the other one I had the great hope of. Fond memories of walking in the arcade with 20 cents and playing Space Invaders all day. I would have thought that was more exciting than playing Candy Crush or whatever it's called. But we did find that scarcity did apply in some areas. And the first one was watching TV at the time it is shown. So sitting down watching the TV show at 8:30 or whenever it's shown was seen as more exciting overall in terms of anticipation and excitement than downloading it. Which I think is great news for advertisers because it still says it's going to be a high level of engagement, excitement, and there's a whole lot of neuroscience that would support that as well. Watching movies, we all love going to the flicks more than just downloading a movie. And again, you might argue, well, there's large screen formats, there's going with people, those things certainly may be interplaying there, but certainly scarcity is playing a role there. And then Aussie sports, we love to watch it live, whether we watch it on TV or whether we go to the game, more so than accessing something like Fox Footy. And then holiday news, this was an interesting one where we actually found, we all love to go overseas and post, look at me, here I am, by the pool, having a great time, don't you wish you were here, all that type of thing. But people actually enjoy just pick up the phone and call them. Call your mum, say, Mum, having a great time. Give that a go. But it wasn't universal, ladies and gentlemen, and this was the one that was most disappointing to me, was the music one. I really thought that this was going to come home to roost, but no, we are actually enjoying our music more now on our smartphones, with whatever services we're using, than vinyl. Staying in touch, it was actually emails, so emails more so than letters, so no principle of scarcity there. And then long distance, it is not the phone call. I mean, the phone calls, obviously, they're all phone calls, but it's actually Skype. And Skype is something or a similar service. It's certainly something that we can do on a weekly basis, every couple of days. That is enjoyable more. So you might actually see some themes here, and that started me thinking, well, what? Maybe there's a principle of immunity to if technology actually makes things better, and we already do them quite often. It got me thinking, well, maybe things are better now than they were in the past. So what I did loosely is I just kind of mapped all those technologies from kind of when they were invented loosely. So reading newspapers, things you could potentially do 100 years ago, right up to the things we do now. And then I plotted the enjoyment scores across those things. And you can basically see those blue lines kind of like there are some peaks, like flicks and movies, call from overseas, email from family and friends, and photos taken on a smartphone is kind of defining technologies. But if we average all that out, the average enjoyment scores are the same as they've always been. So basically we're enjoying things as much now as we were in the past, and vice versa. They're not necessarily the same things, but we've always got something which is floating our boat, so to speak. But maybe the answer lies in the generational differences. Maybe we have to unpack this and have a look at it. Surely, a baby boomer would prefer getting a record than Gen Y with using a service on their phone. Let's start with taking photos. That's digital, that's smartphone, and that's developed photos. So for all of them, developed photos, no matter what generation you are from, you actually think that digital cameras or smartphones are better. And if you think about it, it kind of makes a lot of sense. I don't know if you remember this, but I certainly do. Coming back from Europe with 20 rolls of film, and have to save up and get one developed every month, and then you get them, and it'd be a high level of anticipation, and then you go, yeah, that's shit. I really do that. And then it's going to cost you $28 or something. So technology clearly has made that better. Accessing news. Every generation likes accessing news on their PC or their laptop. That's newspapers. You can certainly see high levels of enjoyment for the older generations, but you can also see pretty much a straight line there in terms of decline, which would sort of suggest that newspapers are on their way out. And then for smartphones, we actually see with the younger generations, they're enjoying that more. Video games, again, the great hopes here. Firstly, you'll notice that's a portable gaming device, so certainly younger generations enjoy the gaming more than older generations. That's a gaming console, and then that's the arcade. So again, the arcade was seen as less enjoyable than the others. So then I thought, well, we maybe just have a look at when things were at their best. Maybe that will give us some clues. So hearing from family and friends on trips was best for baby boomers hearing a phone call. So again, I say, you really must call your phones this afternoon. You're a hard crowd. Watching TV was best when boomers were watching it at the time it was shown, but equally so, Generation Y is enjoying that as much by instant download. Watching movies, it's always been flicks for everybody. Hearing from family and friends abroad, it's boomers just want to hear from you, right? So just phone, all the way. It doesn't matter if it's a smartphone. But Gen Y equally enjoying Skype. Staying in touch, it's boomers with the email. You might have noticed, have we seen Gen X yet? Gen X hasn't topped anything. They must have missed out except for sports. Love sports, right? So Gen X, they love watching it live on TV or watching it live or going to the game. And then music, I think this is a profound statistic. Generation Y is enjoying their music on their smartphones now more than anyone's ever enjoyed music on anything. You might notice there's some generational kind of things going on there. So I just had a quick look at that, where they were not necessarily the highest, but where they were high. So builders with newspapers. You might have noticed baby boomers seems all to be about communications. Generation X, it was kind of sports, and then Gen Y, it's all about gaming and entertainment. So we saw, what we've basically seen here is abundancy does not necessarily diminish our enjoyment. We've seen that all sorts of things have increased, but we've seen that sometimes technology can make things better, even if it is more frequent, and in fact increase our enjoyment of those things. But there are some things that we still enjoy the old way, like going to the cinema or receiving a phone call, if you're a mum, from your son, for example. Getting there, you're warming up, come on. And we see that enjoyment over I'll do the new things. So anyway, so that's basically technology. Let's have a look at society changes. Maybe we'll see more going on there. So we did the same thing, and people said, yeah, international sports, that's on the up. Overseas holidays, that's on the up. Watching your TV, which was supposed to be in control, actually didn't work very well as control, because people said that had gone up, so they're either all Swans fans, this didn't go down very well in Adelaide, by the way, or we're just accessing the media more often through technology, so that didn't really work. Family holidays, kids' presents, kids' TV, out for dinner with kids, school awards, new bike, scooter or skateboard, didn't go up that much, and then team activities and seeing someone you have a crush on was kind of seen as negative, so it kind of did kind of work. So you can see all those things generally were seen as increasing, not as much as technology, which would suggest that technology is a great enabler of increasing things. But we did find with the society things that scarcity did apply, and it did apply to kids' presence. So we started getting some idea that, well, okay, well, you know, maybe we're spoiled, not necessarily rotten, but our kids are certainly showing some signs of being spoiled. Is that a minute or 5? Excellent. I can slow down. Okay, so kids' presence. Kids' presence. So you go back to boomers, they enjoyed their presence a lot more than Gen Y. You might notice the scores are all pretty high, they're all around 8. So kids still love presents, right? Don't get me wrong. But your parents who got that one wooden toy truck from their dad really like their presents. Team winning. Gen X came through as higher on that one. School awards. This one cracks me up. I found just a quick slide because I've got 5 minutes. I found a school award under my son's bed the other day. He's obviously hiding it, obviously immensely proud of this award. He keeps breaking his arm. He's like broken it twice in 6 months. He got an award for being safe in the playground. But not breaking your arm, ladies and gentlemen. You got to go back to boomers, ladies and gentlemen, before you have a real appreciation of awards. New bike, scooter or skateboard. Okay, right. Now, that wasn't seen as going up as very much, but I'm pretty sure my kids have got 2 skateboards, 2 bikes. What was the other one? Broken arms. And I think I got 1 if I was lucky. Yeah? But, look, boomers love their bikes much more than Gen Y. So there's some evidence there that we actually are spoiling our kids a little bit, and the principle of scarcity seems to apply. This one's a bit of an interesting one, dancing as a young adult. I'm talking about, you know, somewhere like the Norwood Town Hall, which is where my parents met in Adelaide, you know, which would be like a once a month kind of thing. This was seen as it was less scarce in the past, right, and more appreciated in the past, so that supports that. But scarcity did not apply to everything. So international sports, for example, holidays, overseas holidays, we're actually enjoying those more. The young kids are enjoying their overseas holidays more than us, so I don't know. If the destination's getting better, maybe the destinations are getting better. Or maybe it's still reasonably scarce, right? You might as well be going on holiday instead of every 3rd year or 5th year, every 2nd or 3rd. So perhaps that's what's playing a role there. And then kids' TV. You know, kids' TV's grown up a lot since HR Puff and stuff. If you laugh at that, you're as old as me. Is you? It seems to have grown up a lot, but certainly we're enjoying our kids' TV a lot more. And then there was no effect on things like family holidays, dinner out with the kids, team sports, or seeing your crush. Now you might say, well, hang on, what about the builders there? They got low scores. None of them were significant, but you would, you know, you could look at those things and go, well, maybe they just don't remember those things. Too far away. Seeing your first crush, you know. So, again, there's mixed evidence that society changes leads to proliferation, that's lessening our enjoyment. We've seen even in society that things have gone up, but some things are now more prevalent, are actually enjoyed more. So things like overseas holidays, kids' TVs. Although there's certainly some evidence that we might be spoiling our kids, if not just a little bit. And other areas were appreciated the same. So I think spoiled, but not spoiled rotten, and sometimes too much can actually be better. So just want to finish with a final thought around, well, perhaps what we need is some new rules around scarcity. And I've come up with 3. This is a work in progress, so happy to discuss this in the break. My first rule is I call the principle of technical immunity. And basically what this says, if we do something, we do it regularly, like taking photos or listening to music or other things, and we have a desire to do it even more, and technology can make it better, then our enjoyment levels can actually be increased, not decreased. And then the principle of sustained scarcity, which I was talking about with the overseas holidays. So if it's something that frequency remains relatively infrequent, but it also seemed to have another connection, which was there's got to be some kind of personal interaction. So when you're going on a holiday or the phone call to mum, then enjoyment can also be increased. And then of course we've seen what I call the principle of generational inertia, where some activities remain favoured in terms of enjoyment by some generations, things like sports for Gen X, newspapers for builders, because it's entrenched or defined for that generation. That's all I have, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.